Today, we're looking at Canada's interest rate data, which will be released tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Here's what Daniel Johnson of Bloomberg News had to say. Economists are expecting the Bank of Canada to continue its aggressive rate hike campaign after inflation data came in higher than expected. The latest data released by Statistics of Canada last Wednesday shows the Consumer Price Index up 6.9% year over year in September. Economists tracked by Bloomberg were expecting a 6.7% increase. Amid these stickier than expected inflation numbers, here's how economists are now predicting the central bank will respond. Bank of Montreal chief economist Douglas Porter expects a 75 basis point rate hike rather than the 50 points that were previously forecasted. Canadian interest rates currently sit at 3.25%, so a move up to 4% is what is currently predicted. Now let's take a quick look inside the EdgeFinder at a Canadian dollar pair. So here we are inside of the EdgeFinder and taking a look at the score chart summary. We can see up here towards the top, USD CAD is our strongest Canadian dollar pair with a score of +4 and a buy bias. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. There's something coming sooner than you might expect. Are you ready for it? So after clicking on that, we've opened up the USD CAD breakdown page. And like I just said, we have a score of +4 here with an overall buy bias. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this COT data, which has a score of +2. COT data, or institutional trader data, can be found right down here under our sentiment section. And we took a look at the US dollar yesterday, but we'll go ahead and go over it again. 78.56% long and 21.44% short from institutional traders, so heavily favored on the dollar side. And Canadian dollar is 38.74% long and 61.26% short for the Canadian dollar. So institutional traders are heavily favored shorting the Canadian dollar at the moment. Retail traders are 25% long, 75% short on this pair overall, giving us a score of +1 there. Keep in mind that when we are looking at this, we are comparing currency number 1 to currency number 2. So are we buying or selling the US dollar based off of the Canadian dollar? And now the US dollar is one of the hottest currencies, if not the hottest currency in the market right now. It pretty much has been all year. So compared to almost any currency, or maybe even all currencies at the moment, the US dollar is going to be favored. That's why when we're taking a look at this COT data, and we see that the dollar is favored by institutional traders, that's why we're getting a plus score here. We're shorting the pair overall, so we are selling Canadian dollar in favor of US dollar. We have a sell score, or a positive score, retail traders, retail sentiment right here. Seasonality has a score of +1. We can look at the numbers for October right here, and all-time average and last 5-year average both showing upward trends moving from October into November. Last 5-year average, a steeper, sharper upward trend, but we can still see a slight upward trend here from the all-time average. Trend reading is +1, and what trend reading means is essentially following the trend. How has this market been trending in the past? And with a score of +1, that means that it's been trending slightly upwards. If it has a score of +2, then it's trending upwards much harder. But a score of +1 still means that this is trending in an upward direction. Now, lastly, GDP growth and inflation both have scores of -1. Unemployment has a score of +1, and interest rates are neutral, score of 0. So let's take a look at that real quick. GDP growth, -0.6% GDP growth for the US dollar compared to 0.8% for the Canadian dollar. And inflation, 8.2% inflation in the US and 6.9% inflation for the Canadian dollar. Again, we are comparing currency 1 to currency 2. So currency 1 in this instance is the US dollar, And so the Canadian dollar has a better GDP growth at the moment and lower inflation. That's why these are negative scores here, because we're basing whether or not we're buying or selling the US dollar off of the Canadian dollar. So when the Canadian dollar has better data statistics in these categories, we're giving it a negative number because it is not as good as the US dollar, which is what we're buying or selling compared to the Canadian dollar in this specific pair. Or you could think of that as whichever pair is coming first. So if this were say Aussie CAD, then we would be comparing the Australian dollar amounts to the Canadian dollar amounts and judging whether or not we want to buy or sell. But unemployment rate score of +1, we can see unemployment for the US is 3.5%, Canadian dollar is 5.2, so US is beating out Canada in that regard. And lastly, interest rates are the same, sitting at 3.25%. However, we just talked about how Canada is releasing their interest rate statements tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern time, and we expect this to get raised 75 basis points up to 4%. And if that is indeed the case, then for the time being, the US will have lower interest rates than the Canadian dollar. Down here, of course, as always, we have our scanner output summary in case you would like to read a written summary of why we score these things the way we do. If you have, I try and do a little bit more analysis explaining why we score these things the way we do. But if you'd like our written summary down here, feel free to pause the video and you can read up on that there as well.
Are you trying to find a broker or feel like you need a better one? In the description below, you'll find the link to fill out our broker match form. After answering a few easy questions, our team will reach back out to you with a personalized broker recommendation. Try it for free in the description below.
Now let's turn it over to TraderNick and TraderJake for some analysis from today's live stream.
So let's take a look at, we had another one, USD CAD. USD CAD pulling back here this morning, actually pretty aggressively. Look at this. So USD CAD has been sort of in a range just recently. If you're a breakout trader, you kind of need this thing to make a move above resistance, something like that, if you're looking for the daily chart. But if you have a sell bias on dollar CAD, you might get something here. This is something more for the shorter term traders today. If you're looking at dollar CAD, we are coming into demand, right? So we had a strong breakout point here. Price found buyers here, found buyers here, found buyers here. So if you're looking at this thing and you're saying, okay, well, will we find buyers? If the answer is no, and we actually break and close underneath the lows, there may be opportunities in the short term to possibly trade this thing lower, right? But overall, on a swing trading basis, I'm still looking for more long side on the dollar CAD. So if I take a look at this thing like on the daily chart, higher time frames, I think pullbacks could be in order, but interesting around the 1.35.
All right, CAD yen. CAD yen is a little bit harder. I think overall we're bullish, right? Overall we're bullish. I think we have a little bit of support right here, maybe. Like we tapped off of that support right there on the daily. It's a little bit harder. I'd say on CAD yen, what I would want to see is a break back above this level, a reclaim, right? And then a retest. And then maybe you could look to get long off of these lows here, take it up to the highs here. So I think overall we're bullish on CAD yen, but it's a little bit not as clean, right? It's not nearly as clean as pound yen is. Like we have these big kind of sweeping candles here. Not really like a clear range for us to trade in. I'd say if we can reclaim this level, right, with the right kinds of confirmations, especially if you drop this down to the hourly chart, maybe you can get like a solid entry right here to take it to the upside. I think that looks okay. However, I'd say pound yen looks a lot better on the break and retest here. The levels are much cleaner.
Make sure you guys check out the links in the description if you need broker recommendations, access to our free Discord, or want to chat with us on Telegram. If you're interested in our trading software, the EdgeFinder, you can find that in the description as well. Thanks for watching.